You are now entering the Take Up, place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host. That is the managing editor of thetakeup.com, Andrew Wyatt. Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
Every episode, we decide if one film gets to enter the Take-Up's permanent cinema. Today, we are continuing talking about some Best Picture nominees, and we've arrived to Frankenstein's Castle. That's Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. And then we'll have one more thing. Andrew, so I guess my first question is, so we teased doing an episode on Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, right? We teased this several times and didn't end up doing it. Well, now we're kind of going back. We've done One Battle After Another. We've done Secret Agent. Is that it? So we're gonna circle back and cover some new releases because I don't know, we're kind of in a fallow period. It's January, February. There's not a lot of great new releases out. Were you able to see this in its limited window theatrically, or did you watch it at home?
I watched it at home.
Yeah.
I did make a little bit of like an event of it.
Yeah. Like,
My wife and I don't watch a lot of movies together. It's sort of a special occasion when we actually sit down and make a date to be in front of the TV on this particular night. So, made some food. We both wanted to watch it, settled in, put the bright green, sickly green background lighting on behind my TV just for the occasion,
that's cute.
kind of thing. No, but I did not get I mean, full confession, I haven't seen a lot of movies in theaters in the last 6 months, frankly, just because
Yeah.
I've
And
been busy.
that's not, I'm not trying to qualify your opinion as good or bad based upon that. I just I'm asking because I did revisit it. I saw it theatrically, but I did revisit it on TV for this. And the Netflix of it all is very apparent to me, even theatrically. So I was just going to tell you,
Well, what do you let's define our terms. What do we mean by that? The Netflix of it all.
it looks bad.
It looks bad? You think that movie looks bad?
I think this movie looks bad. I think it looks
Okay, I need to understand where this is coming from.
Uh,
I need a description. Like, to me, I know you have backup for this, but I hear people say, "This movie had bad writing. This movie looks like ass." And often they can't,
well,
explain it. But the thing about you is you can explain it, I think.
yes,
What do
and
you mean by that?
yeah, we're gonna do it over an hour. So first, let's set up what's different about this Frankenstein. We've had a lot of Frankensteins.
Mhm.
And we are on the cusp of Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, which is ostensibly a kind of
Sequel.
adaptation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Will you set up what's different? Why this Frankenstein? Why Guillermo? Why?
Well, it's interesting because if you read back through sort of this has been a development hell project for Del Toro for a while. It's sort of his dream project that he's been wanting to make for ages. Frankenstein, if you know anything about Del Toro, you know that Frankenstein was a very important film for him. It's remained a very important film and a very important novel in his imagination, defining a lot of what he thinks, the things that he's interested in, the themes that he's interested in. So it's sort of no surprise that he got around to it eventually. It did take him some time. But if you read sort of the early rumblings of it, he was at one time more interested in a faithful adaptation. He has a lot of affection for the original script, Frank Darabont's original script for Kenneth Branagh's version. He holds as being like a perfect Frankenstein adaptation and one that's very literarily faithful. So at some time he was considering making a faithful adaptation, is my understanding. But as it developed and mutated, it went through its Dark Universe phase. Dudge Jones was attached as the creature for a period. Like, it went through a lot of versions, but the one that it finally materialized once Del Toro established a productive relationship with Netflix a few years ago. I think he knew that the script that was shaping up was not going to be faithful to the original story in terms of plot or necessarily the original core themes. But of course, one thing he's talked about with Frankenstein extensively, both over the decades and on the press for this, is that Frankenstein contains multitudes, right? Like, that's part of the genius of the novel is that there have been so many adaptations in so many media, and they've all found different interesting angles for it, whether they're faithful or not to the plot, whether they're complete reimaginings or deconstructions or whatever. There's always new avenues. It's like Dracula in that respect. There's always new avenues to explore with Frankenstein.
And it
So yeah, I
always seems to come to God complex or creation or what it is to be a human being, a body mind problem, things like that. And I would say there is a lot of
rejection. I
that.
th I think rejection is also a big part of it
Mm,
because
mhm.
Shelley herself was so inspired by Paradise Lost and Milton. So Del Toro talks a lot about the Miltonianness of it all at least in the original novel. It's not necessarily a part of every adaptation, but yeah, there is this idea of, if I can't be X, I will be Y has always been a sort of recurring theme in a lot of its forms.
Daddy issues.
Daddy issues are, I think, front and center. Unsurprisingly, bad fatherhood, I think, is front and center in Del Toro's adaptation.
And in Del Toro's work.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why I say unsurprisingly. Like, this is
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that comes up over and over again. I don't think
So
it's surprising, and for what it's worth, I really liked his, particular thematic and, emphases on this in this particular version, but, yeah, it's very much the Frankenstein that I imagined Del Toro would make. It's very close to being what I pictured.
and why is that?
I mean, because of that fixation on both the fixation on bad fatherhood and the idea. I mean, let's be frank, I think Victor Frankenstein is very not every version of Frankenstein casts Victor as the villain per se of the story,
Right.
but this one unambiguously does, and I
Yeah.
think, like, this is a character who's consistent with the sort of opportunistic, hubris-ridden, venal characters like that he's used before in Pan's Labyrinth and Devil's Backbone. Like, Victor is consistent. This portrayal of Victor is consistent with those. And also, the flip side of that being, Del Toro's obvious sympathy and affection for the creature itself, right? Like, he loves monsters. This is a man who's always loved monsters. And of course, this is the Ur monster, the Ur tragic, almost human but not quite monster who can't exist in the world, who shouldn't have existed in the first place. And it's obvious that from the way Del Toro treats him in the script and his handling of it, that he's very interested in that.
Frankenstein's monsters, the OG, I did not ask to be brought into this world.
Right. "We belong dead," right, from, Bride of Frankenstein is sort of the iconic line,
Yeah.
and I think that that's something that, Del Toro has a lot of sympathy and affection for, and it's sort of a through line in all his work.
I'm under the impression, and it's been like I've never read through Shelley's Frankenstein.
Mhm,
I've been in literature studies and things where I'm kind of aware of the shape of the thing and
mhm.
that this film has takes on a similar shape. I know that the Victor Frankenstein parts are epistolary, but then there's a section of the monster that isn't. Am I remembering this right?
Yeah, so the novel, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I've read it, but the novel, as I understand it, is 2 stories nested, but it doesn't have the bifurcated structure that Del Toro, which I think is actually one of the cooler touches in his adaptation. He introduces this bifurcated structure, Victor's story and the creature story. That really isn't present in the novel per se. We're getting a lot of exposition from the creature, particularly in the Swiss. There's a scene in the Swiss Alps that's very important where the creature sort of explains his own history to Victor, but that's nested inside Victor's story that's being told to another guy, who in turn is telling that story to another guy. So it has that thing that a lot of that 19th century literature does, which
Yeah.
it uses letters and stories being told by people and nested narratives to sort of create its story. And Del Toro is not quite doing that. It's basically a simple frame narrative with the Arctic story, and then we get two not mutually exclusive, but different narratives being told to the captain of the ship by different characters, first by Victor and then by the creature.
But in spirit of nesting stories within stories or
Mhm.
stories being orally passed down or through document, that's present here. So like the kind of
Oh,
spiritual idea of the narrative is present here. So the framing device is that Victor Frankenstein has found himself and his at this point in the story, aluminum leg. I don't remember exactly what it's made out of. Abandoned in, I don't know where they are, the Arctic or something, and very close to a ship that's been frozen in the ice. And
Mhm,
he's found and taken aboard, and he's screaming and saying, "You don't understand what's coming. What's coming is going to destroy all of us. Just give me to him." And his monster is coming, and his monster in this version has like Marvel superhero superhuman strength. And in comparing like I'm more familiar with adaptations than I am the
mhm,
source, but it seems to me he has the kind of superhero strength um compared to any other adaptation I've ever seen, which he's always like brute strength. He is a human made person, like he is concocted to be that.
mhm.
But in this one he's able to like nudge a ship over and break
Yeah,
the
like, he's like the
ice.
Hulk in this. I mean, I think that superhuman strength has been used before, but maybe not to this extent. I think the part that really sticks for me, though, is not the strength, but the invulnerability. I think that's something that
It-
Del
it-
Toro leads into strongly, the idea that he's, like, constantly he's Wolverine, right? Like, he's constantly regenerating, but he's wounded by bullets and stuff, but he eventually shrugs them off and
yes,
slowly
he has
what do they call it more Wolverine? Healing factor. He has that hyper healing.
he has a health bar and he can
Yeah,
restore it by
and it's
resting.
constantly going back up, yeah.
Yes. So there are rules that are being set up for not only kind of the way the narrative will be deployed, but also the
Mhm,
way that the two of these main characters are opposing forces, but also their narrative tracks are laid together in
mhm,
parallel.
mhm,
And what we really start with is Victor's recounting of his entire lifetime. Of course, we get, you know, very Freudian origins of Victor Frankenstein and his upbringing. As his father, played by Charles Dance, is like, of course, like Bad Daddy. Like British Bad Daddy is Charles Dance.
Charles Dance has actually played Frankenstein's father twice.
What the fuck?
There was that completely forgettable movie with, James McAvoy. I think it was just called Victor Frankenstein, where he also played his dad. Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah,
Was it
completely
Daniel
forgot.
Radcliffe as Igor, wasn't it?
Shut the fuck up.
I think.
Shut the fuck up. That did not happen.
Yeah. So anyway,
Um,
but it is a great choice. Like, if you're gonna do a bad daddy, Charles Dance is a
Yeah,
great
OG
choice, I
Bad
would say.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Charles Dance is always kind of fun no matter what he's doing.
Yeah.
But particularly nasty here and abusive, not only to him but to Frankenstein's mother, who is
Mhm.
a French expat, played by Mia Goth.
In the novel, she's for the nationalities get a little muddled in this version, but to be fair, they're pretty much muddled in every version, I think, maybe other than Kenneth Branagh's version. That Frankenstein is supposed to be a Swiss German raised in Italy, and a lot of the people, including his mother and I believe his eventual wife, are Italian as well. It's a little confusing, but it is mainly a like Swiss Alps centered story. For as much as we conflate it with Germany or alternately in some sort of universal horror films with Transylvania, this is very much a Swiss mountain alpine story at its heart.
But in this version, Victor Frankenstein, as played by Oscar Isaac, is from Boston, right?
Accent wise, yeah, maybe so.
God damn it. I have to, so this here we come to my first gripe.
Yeah.
I am I love Oscar Isaac. What the fuck is he doing in this movie? Why is it him? He not only is he kind of overcranked at all times, which is fine, and it kind of fits within
Hmm.
Del Toro's world as a whole, but I just feel like his performance in particular is lacking any sort of nuance. He feels completely lost in this. And
Really,
I think a part of it for
I
me
quite
is
enjoyed him in this.
a
Yeah.
part of it for me is the accent work, and it feels like he's working overtime to try and do it. But there's a kind of uh, like overcompensation in histrionics compared to what I like about Oscar Isaac is that he does have a kind of twinkle in his eye. I think he's just completely miscast in this, but you like him.
Really.
You like him.
I like him, and I think, again, for me, it's about consistency with the kinds of villains, the portrayal in this, like, I guess I didn't the accent doesn't really bother me. I'm not as attuned to like, other people talk a lot about actors and accents, and I guess I don't have the ear for
This
it or whatever, so
this comes up. We talk about this a lot,
I'm
how
never
I
really
catch
bothered
on
by
it
it.
and you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, just typical Midwestern American then, I guess, in that respect, but, I actually liked how committedly unsympathetic and vile he is in this, and I think that's consistent with how Del Toro wants to approach the story, wants to
Yeah.
approach Victor. He is not meant I mean, again, he's consistent with people like, Jacinto in Devil's Backbone, which I just rewatched, and, the officer in Pan's Labyrinth, like these figures who sort of slowly emerge as even worse than like, we knew they were bad news, but they slowly emerge as even worse than we possibly imagined. Every possibility for redemption or insight or self-awareness that is dangled in front of Victor, he somehow manages to screw it up. And I like that. I like that commitment. And Isaac's performance, I think, is committed to that. If you know, I maybe understand what you're talking about when you say it's histrionic, but the total lack of self-awareness and the idea that he's sort of spitting and flailing and all these other characters are sort of like, whoa, dude. Um, I think it's consistent with how his character is supposed to be represented in this film.
You're getting to my whole thing. One of my things with Del Toro
Mhm,
is I feel like the ideas are always there. I
mhm.
love the ideas. I love listening to him talk about his own films, even when I don't necessarily like any of his films a lot. Um, find his execution always to be immature, lacking in any kind of visual interest.
Really?
Um, I
I think of
find
him
his
as like a very visually sumptuous filmmaker. That's
we'll
wild.
talk we'll talk about it. Do you wanna talk about it now?
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm interested in understanding the criticism.
Do you think he's a visual filmmaker in that he always finds himself, and creates he has a very specific design style.
Mhm.
I mean, his camera is unmotivated, disinterested. I This one in particular, since he's lost his frequent collaborator and has moved into more digital filmmaking, he is doing this thing that is drives me fucking batty. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really.
His camera is constantly moving. There are shots in this where that makes sense. There is in the beginning, in the first section, there's a shot that the camera is rolling out and it reveals that Victor, his leg isn't necessarily broken. It's that his prosthetic is askew, right?
Yeah.
Um, then there's another shot later where the monster is laying down and we are trucking out on him, and it reveals that his hand has been singed and his fingers might be regenerating. That's a reveal through
Mhm.
movement. Otherwise, the camera is always moving. It feels to me as if this director doesn't is either unconfident with framing a shot or unconfident in how to relay a message other than through movement, and equates a kind of musicality, a cinematic musicality with movement where that isn't necessarily true, and
Mhm.
is not a confident enough filmmaker to set up his shots in a way that they can be assembled to suggest movement, that they're constantly trucking in, trucking out. Even the shots, the close-up shots of people are constantly moving. Now, I'm going to say this and I'm going to compare it to a film I think about where the camera is moving to a purpose. And this is a weird kind of analogy, but Robert Altman's Gosford Park, the camera is always roving, but
Mhm.
he uses a telephotic lens. He's actually kind of making you a participant in this party and where you're observing several people. In this, I don't know why the fuck he's doing it. And it's something I noticed with Nightmare Alley, which is a film that on its surface, I should be immediately attracted to. One, it's got My Carol Girls in it, but two, it's a film noir and color, and I know there's black and white version, but
Mm,
I like the source material. I like the first film made on it, but I just noticed his camera just keeps on pushing in, pushing out, as if he is imbuing it with movement by moving the camera instead of, I don't know. I mean, no one is Orson Welles, but think about like the rhythmic cutting of Welles and the sense of movement you get in the variation of angle. I just don't get that here. It feels like
mm,
he's afraid someone's gonna, like, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to cut it together later. And that he's a filmmaker who has this great design
mhm.
and has so many elements that make up this kind of beautiful world. I think it's beautiful because he doesn't sit in it. He doesn't let me sit in it. And
Well, I guess I know what you're saying. It's not something I don't know what it says about my cinematic skills of observation, that it's not something I've really noticed, but now that you're talking about it, I guess that is a feature of his contemporary, style. But
but so
I
I
guess
noticed
I'm
that
not
you
gelling on what you mean by immature or unconfident, because to me, it's possible to choose motion. I mean, let me pose another, like, wild comparison as
Yep.
another filmmaker who does this. Terrence Malick does this, especially in the last, like, 15 years of filmmaking that he's done,
Right.
where he
Right.
never lets the camera just sit still. It's
Yep.
constantly drifting and floating and moving and panning, and, like, it never ends, and particularly when you have 2.5 hours of Christian Bale wandering around Los Angeles and the camera never sits still. I think there, I notice it more because it's in the service of a specific, mood or something. It's not a mood I necessarily like. I've been off and on with Malick in his post, like, Thin Red Line oeuvre, but, at least maybe it's maybe more noticeable to me as a, like, formal aspect of his filmmaking. With Del Toro, I can't say that I've ever really noticed it. Was it Here's a question for you. Was it President Pinocchio? Because
I don't
that
know.
kind of
So
thing requires a deliberateness.
here,
Stop motion requires a
right.
deliberateness,
I
right?
don't think it is, and that's what makes me question of like his actual participation with the camera.
Mhm.
And directors have many jobs, and that's fine,
Well,
but I
Pinocchio
just
was co-directed. I should
oh,
that's
that's
we
right.
need
That's
do
right.
need to call attention to that, yeah.
So not to like completely dox you, but you
Mm.
rewatched Devil's Backbone last night, according to
Yeah,
your letterbox.
love that movie.
Is it like that? Because I've seen all of his
Well,
features.
this is what I'm talking about. I don't know. I would like, I didn't notice it last night, what you're talking about. I would have to go back and rewatch it and look specifically for it, if that's what you're talking about.
And to get more specific, it's just, what am I supposed to look at? What do you want me to be doing in this scene? I don't like. I'm totally fine with having like Arch Proscenium direct me with actors, but like, what are you doing, Del Toro? Let's talk about Victor Frankenstein's, to take us back into the narrative. The
Mhm.
first real like human experiment we see is like spinal cord and the way he's got his certain nerve electricity points. He's in a
Some real
uh
body horror shit in, like,
it's it's really
this scene
cool.
in a lecture. It's in in the novel,
It's
he's at Ingolstadt. In the film, this film version, they move him to Scotland, for university, and he's in this, like, beautiful, like, great Victorian lecture hall with all the guys in dark suits around him at these tiers. It's,
yeah,
again, like,
very
one of
Frankenstein thing. Yeah.
yeah, like, it's a thing we've seen before, I think, but I love Del Toro's execution of it, and then sort of the body horror centerpiece of this man thing, that these remnants that he's, galvanized, literally galvanized with electricity to into motion and maybe some semblance of life. It's a
But
great body horror moment.
and you correctly refer to it as the centerpiece.
Mhm.
The film itself does not treat it like a centerpiece. It's constantly going around it. I never get a moment to kind of evaluate the beautiful horror of what's going on here. What I get instead is this camera kind of going around it, and it's in that I can think around it being like, okay, well, it's a part of the space, it's a part of the whole thing. It's that this very horrific thing is happening amongst this sort of mundane, and it's a disciplinary hearing of sorts or something. So that title card tells us that Victor's in trouble. Oh, um, But I just
let me do my special pleading here now that you sort of have called attention to this technique. In that scene, it doesn't excuse it everywhere, obviously, if you're having a problem with it. But I think in that scene, a kind of like constant circling, constant sense of motion, again, is consistent with Isaac's performance and how like Victor doesn't even have seem to understand that he's in trouble. Like he's a salesman in that moment, and he's in his pitch, and
yeah,
he's
yeah,
trying to
yeah, he
show
totally
off to
is.
these guys. And there's this sense that there's a sense of almost rising action as we move to this thing that he's created, and he reveals it, and it is more and more grotesque as he's going on, and the audience is reacting. There is a sense of like acceleration and motion to the plot elements there, I think.
I just don't feel like the film catches up with that. I
Mm.
feel like the script has these ideas, but his unmotivated camera, there's no kind of elegance to it. I think he thinks it's being elegant by sweeping and swooping through things, but he's not Max Ophuls. Like he's not creating that kind of weight. And so this is another thing too, isn't that movement in digital just feels so different. And I think part of me is like trying to catch up with, or maybe just like an aesthetic value as a whole is trying to catch up with technology and the
Mhm.
way I miss, like, the weight of a camera and things, and so the weight of a camera in movement does so much for me. Just grow up, old man, it's over, no longer do we have two-ton cameras, and
Well,
we're kind of rickety,
I
but
think there's space. No, so I do wanna come to your defense there because I do think there's space for all of that, right? Like, there are
there
filmmakers who are working with old equipment, there are filmmaker and doing fascinating things with them. Every auteur worth their salt these days, and, has made that 16 millimeter movie or 35 millimeter movie in a digital age that even people who have embraced the digital format have gone back and done that and experimented with style and form. So I get what you're saying that sometimes change is difficult and that you have affection for the, like, formal hallmarks, the look and feel, the vibe hallmarks of a certain technology. I can see that, yeah.
and um, one of the bigger problems for me is that he's a director who's regarded for his visuals, but
Mhm.
he's what people are talking about when they talk about that is his design and his collaborators' design. But there's a clear consistency across his design, right? In particular, like I rewatched it with Victor last night. Also, that's a problem for me. It's like this is a movie of a big guy yelling Victor for 2.5 hours, and I do that. I
It's
do
just
that.
mimiccing what you hear and around your house, so.
Right. Yeah. But pointing out the design of the coffins,
Mhm.
it's just gorgeous. But even that, what you get is the camera's starting up halfway up it, and all I want is he goes overhead, and that's really cool, is an overhead procession where I can just look at the thing. And I wanna be able to luxuriate and kind of enjoy what he's up to, but I also understand that he's building a whole world, and so it's full of details, and it's not like kind of like design porn, but I feel like that's how people watch his movies. Like, that's what people really appreciate about his films.
Yeah, and from in a sense, we do have to credit, his production designers, his art directors are just as
Absolutely.
much the
Yeah.
creators there as he is.
Costumes. Oh my
But
god.
the consistency across his oeuvre of great design work, I think, can be credited to him. Like, he clearly
Yeah.
knows what he likes, he knows how to find the right people who make what he wants to see. I do think I'm trying to think back to other aspects of his filmography that sort of stand out for not their visuals as in production design, but their camera work. I
I think
quite like I quite like
Kronos
I
and
quite like the
Pan
stuff.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, I actually quite like the stuff he's doing with sort of proto-digital filmmaking in the second Hellboy film, and
Mhm.
how it's using the conventions of superhero action and putting it in a slightly different context is sort of interesting.
I
Um,
I won't say that, I don't like some of I'm a fan of Mimic. I think Mimic is a good movie.
which is his most, like, the movie he doesn't really like, right? Like, it's the one that he disavows.
Yeah.
It's his Alien 3, so
Yeah, yeah. Um, I like Kronos enough. I like
I love Kronos. Kronos is
Devil's
one of my favorites.
Backbone. I think Kronos is the one that really gets to the fairy tale thing the best, and by
Mhm.
getting really kind of far away from it.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like there's a lot of ideas, and I don't ever know that they're executed in a way that he is able to verbalize them. And I don't like Pan's Labyrinth. I think Pan's Labyrinth is a very chaste film and not in the way that he thinks it is. I think it's actually like a conservative film in a
You
way.
you have to recognize that you're, like, in the cinephile minority there for
I
hating
understand.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Like, I understand. I understand all of this, and this is why it's kind of frustrating, like, that I can't find entry points into his work ever,
Mm,
really. Pinocchio, I thought was garishly abusive and sadistic, and I know what he's doing with it, but I just it's not working for me, bud. And it's always going back to kind of the same ideas, and we can get back to kind of thematic stuff of Frankenstein, is
mhm,
his preoccupation with Christ stories. And Pinocchio, I thought it was just thuddingly boringly done. And this one I think is a little bit more interesting now here and then with the kind of imagery that he uses, but I don't know that that's his main concern here, is
mhm,
telling that kind of narrative. If it is, it's bringing the Christ figure to a more human, like Last Temptation of Christ,
mhm.
place than he has before.
I mean, I don't see it's interesting you say that because I don't see the Christ metaphor as being a strong through line. There is a Catholicism in all his work. There's
Yeah.
an inherent, like, Mexicanness in all his work, but I don't see the Christ stuff. Here's an interesting question. Ask me what my least favorite Guillermo del Toro film
What
is.
is it?
Pacific Rim.
But
Got no use for it.
that's like hard. Is that does that exist? And you know what pisses me off about that? Me off so bad is that Andrew, that should be our shit. I love
That's
big
what kind of
robots.
annoys me
I
about
love
Pacific
big
Rim is
monster.
I should love kaiju, I should love giant robots, I just was completely I wouldn't even say I hated it, I was just I feel like I was in crazy town because everybody was gushing, sort of all the
Yeah,
typical, like, geeky people who I normally associate with
yeah.
were gushing about it, and I was like, "Nah."
Nerds like it, but critics didn't like it. It was lambasted.
Was it?
It was a folly.
I thought it
Yeah.
was well liked.
No, and here we have another kind of visual problem is that in Pacific Rim, the great battle at the end and throughout the film, it's in the fucking dark. Like, and I understand
Oh, it's
why
the Game of
filmmakers.
Thrones problem.
Yeah, I understand why a lot of filmmakers have to do that for budgetary reasons, but it's like in this, it bothered me so much, and maybe you can kind of give me some thematic idea here. Um, how obscured the monster's face was throughout the film to where I'm like, why? What? Okay, at this point, like, we're in the we should be exposed to the horror of it so that you can bring it to a human place. But I felt
Mhm,
like often, like, Mia Goth, her face would be lit, and I'm talking about when they're in the canals underneath. Um, but Frankenstein's monster would be not even in the shadows, just like dimly lit. Like you could see it if you got close enough to the TV, but there's no like kind of style around it. I'm just curious because at times I really just wanted like present me with the horror of it.
mhm.
Because your idea really is to talk about this as a human figure, but the human figure that can't exist in humanity because it's horrific, because it's the other, right?
Except that he's not really human. I mean, like, that's part of the riddle of the creature, right? The riddle of the atom is that is formed he is formed of human parts. He has a human brain in there, but is he human?
Yeah,
Like
and this is like it's an interesting question to be asking right now too, because it's the same like AI question that we've always dealt with, but we are dealing with in particular right now. It's like, simulating consciousness, does that make someone human? I am always sort of disinterested in that conversation. I don't know why. It just maybe it's the people
but
who want to
but
have
I
the
think
conversation with me. I'm like,
that part of what Shelley did in her original novel, and I think Del Toro does appreciate, and a lot of adaptations have really appreciated, is how that question is so much more interesting when it's an organic being,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, uh, the I'm an AI skeptic, so I, like, have no use for, LLMs and
Okay.
other
Yeah. It's
and other crap like that. So, like, to me, that's not even doesn't even approach 1% of what true, like, artificial sentience would be. But part of what makes
we are not
Frankenstein
there. I
no,
have
we're
no
not near
fear.
the
Yeah.
singularity. It's not coming anytime soon.
Yeah.
Um, simulate maybe convincing idiots that it looks like a person, yes,
Yeah.
maybe, but not
Yeah.
for real. But Frankenstein's creature has always been fascinating because of that organic quality, but the deadness of it, like the perversion, and I don't mean that in a sexual sense. I mean, maybe I do because we're
Yeah.
talking about
A little
creation
bit
and
of A, a little bit of B.
generation.
Yeah.
But the perversion of it, the fact that it's dead matter that has been reanimated, and this is again, I think, why the sort of superhero touches that he adds, the invulnerability, the regeneration, the super strength, I think makes sense in this context because he clearly identifies that the organic qualities of the creature make it something not human. It looks like a human, it talks like a human, it moves like a human in some respects. It's made of human parts, but it is not fully human. It is something else. Um, whether you view that as sacrilege, it's blasphemous, or as something wondrous and miraculous is a matter of perspective. But I don't think we can say that this is a one-to-one human being in the same way that every other person in the world is. That's sort of the riddle of of the monster has always been that. And I think this film does get at that. I'm not again, maybe I'm bootstrapping why we never get a fully lit, beautiful framed shot of Jacob Elordi's face in the makeup. I mean,
So
I don't think it's
don't
because the makeup is bad.
are
I
you
think it's
calling me out?
the
That
makeup is good.
I just want to see Jacob Elordi because it's
Yeah.
also true.
I really like the design choices here are fascinating. Del Toro was supposedly influenced. There's a 1980s illustrated edition of Frankenstein that was a big influence on Del Toro. That's very hard to find now, done by a comics artist who did like he's a sort of typical ink and pen comic artist, but he did the names. I'm sorry, the name's eluding me, but he did like full plate style, black and white,
Mm.
almost made to look like engraving style illustrations that were very iconic and a big influence on Del Toro.
The
Um,
the stitching is really interesting, and I wish I had my fashion friends here to tell me like this kind of stitch on the inside
yeah,
is really cool. And when I keep going back, there are scenes in this that I like, and I like some of the performances too. And Mia Goth, when she touches him, and he's just straight up like still bleeding, like
yeah.
that kind of little touch about the body is really interesting to me.
But I really liked how pale he is, and it almost lends a Greek statuary, like a marble quality to his flesh, which I
Yeah.
really thought was cool, which of course adds that Pygmalion, mythical touch to the creation of the creature that isn't I mean, Jacob Elordi's a handsome dude, and the creature is grotesque. I mean, the way that Shelley describes him, I've always been fascinated by that, like, as a whole, he might be regarded as a handsome figure, but the fact of the construction and the details of the construction made him grotesque.
Mm.
And I think that's part of what the design is getting at here. But there is this kind of like ex nihilo creation. It won't look like a squealing babe, purple and, you know, fidgety like a newborn. It's going to look like a statue carved by a human being to be the resemblance of a man. I think
Well,
that's kind of that's the cool subtext there. I think.
can I be honest?
Mhm.
Smash.
Still would.
Would. God. Eh, so let's talk about him though. And I think if we're doing this kind of we're going through Best Picture, we're letting the Oscars be our guide here, and we've had a lot of conversations and written a lot about
Mhm.
the Oscars and their value. But um I think if this film has chances for gold, that best supporting actor category is really interesting this year. We don't have to break it down completely.
Well, I mean, I haven't been following closely, so who
Oh,
who who
okay.
else is nominated in Best Supporting Actor?
So we have two guys from One Battle, and that's Sean Penn, who I think is giving one of the great performances ever, Benicio del Toro, who is giving a really like ingratiating in a good way performance and
Very
is
crowd pleasing,
a
yeah,
very crowd pleasing, and people love him. Those two have Oscars. We've got Stellan Skarsgård, who is due a fucking award, who has
yeah,
been, working not only in Sweden, wherever he's from, and Hollywood for decades now, but is regarded as like one of the great working older actors in a film people love. And then we have Jacob Elordi in this, and that is how many is four. Oh, and then Delroy Lindo getting a surprise nomination for
mhm,
Sinners in a film that is also one of the most popular films of the year, and an actor who is
yeah,
overdue, and deserves a makeup nomination, according to prognosticators from Da Five Bloods, where he
mhm,
was poised to win, didn't get nominated. It's like anybody's game, and it's totally cool. I'm down for really any of them to do it because I like all of their performances.
mhm.
Jacob Elordi will have chances to do it. I don't know that I want him to have an Oscar for this movie. I don't like because I really love him as a performer and yes, as a public figure and as a figure. Um,
Well, back up
but
a minute.
let's
Help
talk
help
about.
my help my Oscar history. Has has a person, has an actor performing as Frankenstein's monster ever been nominated for an Oscar in Oscar history
Well, let's see.
before?
De Niro. I think De Niro
Like,
would be the only one, right? Like, so
was De Niro nominated for Mary
let's
Shelley?
see. I really don't think he was. Where are the awards? What did they do with the awards? No, no, they have
Hmm,
not.
interesting. I mean, if we consider Frankenstein a horror picture, and I'm not sure we should, but if we did, it's a big horror year. Like, if this feels like a makeup year for the Hereditary snubs in
Well, I
some ways.
think I think the makeup of the Academy is changing. People love Guillermo del Toro. Like the Academy specifically loves it. I mean, the Fish Fucker movie, it won Best Picture. I mean, I like that. I do like
Here's
that
my
movie.
here's my
I do
here's
like
my take, and rightly so.
I
Uh,
do like that
it
movie.
was the best picture that year, in my opinion.
Uh,
Of the nominees, it was the best picture that year.
I'm trying to rewind. What year was that? 2017?
Yeah,
Really? Oh,
I
come
think
on.
so. I
Lady
think so.
Lady
It's
Bird,
it
Call Me by Your Name. Whatever, man.
mm,
All right.
yeah, I'm thinking so.
Yeah.
And to call it, I think I do have, so let me push back a little bit on that too, because I do think saying everybody says, "Oh, it's the movie where the woman flushed the fish." But I feel like every time that always gets my hackles up a little bit when people say that, no
It
matter how unseriously, because it really so vastly undersells it, and it presents the film as kind of like a joke, right?
Yes, but a lot of that film is about sex and sexuality.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. It's about desire. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that,
What Emily Dickinson would, paraphrase Emily Dickinson. She said something effective. The heart wants what it wants, or it wants nothing at all.
speaking of which, so I think Elordi is, I think he's really pretty great in this. I love what he's doing with his body, especially when he's quote unquote born and
Yeah.
he's sort of in the fetal position. I mean, Jacob Elordi is a big guy,
Mhm.
and this is my pants okay. That's for
Mhm.
Ethan. I got a smile from Ethan. But he's a big guy, but the way that he like twists his body is really interesting. The way that he kind of mimics like marble statues, the way, you were um referencing the design is really interesting. But he has this innate softness to him always. That is really key to this character and this iteration of the monster.
Yeah. It's hard. I think Andrew Garfield was under discussion originally, which
Isn't that
I love Andrew Garfield, but I don't
he's
see him in this
he's
role.
wrong for this. I
No.
mean, just
And it
Jacob
does feel
Elordi's
like
shape is right for this.
yeah. And I feel like I'm glad we can agree on that, that I feel like the match between Guillermo del Toro's specific vision for how he approaches the creature and Jacob Elordi as a performer is a really stellar match, and I'm really glad that whatever else you wanna say about this film, I'm glad we agree about that because it's, um it's just such a deeply sensitive performance. It's doing everything that the film and the script needs for him to do, and then some. It's really great.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, at this point, I've kind of, shit all over this movie. Do you have a closing defense?
A closing defense.
Or are there any kind of dangling threads that you wanna, go through? I mean, we're getting to the point where we need to vote, and it's kinda
I think
clear.
we know. I think we know. There are some, so let me go the other way and say there are some things that sort of give me pause and make me think this is not, like, absolute top tier Del Toro,
Okay.
for me as somebody who is a fan of his work. I'm still sort of puzzling out some of the adaptational choices in reconfiguring characters and plot and location in a way that I'm not sure, like, again, he decided at some point it wasn't going to be a faithful story, to the original novel. But there are other weird changes, like Christoph Waltz's character is in there, and Christoph Waltz is always a delight when he's on screen. But I'm sort of like, why did we have to reconfigure this so there's an arms dealer who's funding Victor's stuff, and then his daughter is going to be married? Like the character rearrangements and reconfigurations are just don't really seem like they're serving any purpose. He could have kept it more faithful in some respects, and it would have been still would have been fine. Elizabeth as a character in the novel is almost a non-entity. Whatever you can say about Brana's version, he does put her more front and center in an interesting way, I think. And
I mean,
I'm not sure.
to
I'm not
to
sure.
me, Elizabeth in the James Whale one is even more of a person than
Yeah,
the Mia Goth,
she's not too
character.
bright, but she's at least a person.
And she's really curious and caring.
Mhm.
Just I don't think we should open the gender box here. I am also like Guillermo's women are just really stock, and really
See, I
I
really liked Mia Goth in this, and
I
how
like
like
her. I like
the
her.
the like completely unself-conscious tenderness of her stance towards the creature, I think is really cool, and I'm not sure I've ever seen it done. Like, there's been lots of the Beauty and the Beast type pairings with Frankenstein's creature, but I've never seen it done maybe with this level of delicacy. I really like that aspect of it.
Tenderness is a really great word for it. If
Yeah.
anything, like, they are really imbuing it with a lot of tenderness. Okay, Andrew, if
I I'm not voting for this. I'm just
I'm
gonna
not
say that
voting
right
for
at that.
this either. So,
I knew you weren't, but I have Del Toro picks that I would like to maybe mount an even more robust defense of against your haterism later. So
y
we'll keep a JDT film in my pocket for later.
is there an underrated one that you would mount a defense for? I'm not talking about Pan's Labyrinth, we can argue about that on an
No.
episode I think
I
everyone
mean, we've
loves
both
that.
said that we really like Kronos. I really like just Kronos's whole I when I went back and revisited it a few years ago, I was like, this maybe doesn't look as good as I remember. It has this kind of like indie film look to it.
Sure.
But I've always really liked it's kind of like, let's do a vampire movie, but not a vampire movie at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked, and the whole kind of like eldritch clockwork artifact shit is very much my jam. Maybe underrated movie. I mentioned it previously, but I'm a huge fan of the second Hellboy film. I think it's weirdly not based on a specific Mike Mignola comic, unlike all the other Hellboy adaptations that have been done. It's the one that's a completely original story, but it does this very. Have you seen it?
Yes.
The Golden Army? It does this very cool, like, steampunky fairy tale urban fantasy thing that I haven't seen in many other films, and Del Toro executes it so well. So because it's so clearly on his wavelength.
Mhm.
I really liked it, and in some ways, it's an improvement over the first one. Liz and
I
Hellboy's relationship is
yeah.
better. Abe gets an actual character arc in the second one.
It's such a team movie. It
Yeah.
really it's a lot of fun on top of being, like, really impeccably designed too.
The Clockwork Army is great. There's this giant like plant monster that they fights in the streets of New Jersey that then disintegrates into this very like Miyazaki thing where it turns into a carpet of leaves and
Th-
moss and flowers and in the middle of an urban area. Like
This
it's just
is
it's
exactly
filled with cool fairy tale shit. I love
this
it.
is exactly where I think like his kid in a candy store stuff works. It's like
Mhm.
think sometimes he's just like his stuff is kind of outsized for what he's capable of doing. And I think like human emotion might be one of the things that he's not good at.
Aw.
Oh, I'm
But see, that's
sorry,
why
but he's
okay,
so
so
sweet.
one of the things I one of my criticisms of Pacific Rim was that, like, the things that people say that's good about it, that it's like an 8-year-old playing with their kaiju toys and robot toys and smashing them together is the thing I didn't like about Pacific
Yeah,
Rim.
yeah.
Whereas I think Shape of Water, one of the things I liked about it is that it feels like the movie that, like, if Pacific Rim was the movie that 8-year-old Del Toro wanted to make, Shape of Water is the movie that 14-year-old Del Toro wanted to make. Like, it's got monsters, it's got a mad scientist, it's got sex and graphic nudity, it's
Yeah.
got violence, like, there is so I don't necessarily agree that he's an immature or unconfident filmmaker, but I do think that there is this inner child that's an important part of his aesthetic and his values.
All right, so we are not adding Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein and available now on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um, we did not get to the net. You asked me to define the Netflix of it all. It just
We
looks
can talk about
waxy.
that
It just looks waxy. We'll get to another Netflix movie.
yeah.
We'll get to another Netflix movie. But before that, we have one more thing. All right, every episode we round out with one more thing. That's something we've been enjoying since the previous episode. I think we both had books last time, maybe. I don't know.
No, you did. I've had a lot of movies, other older
Oh,
movies
yeah, yeah,
lately,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna go for a movie.
Mhm.
It will probably surprise both of you, and maybe we'll do an episode on it. I have not been I have been an, avid, hater of Emerald Fennell's previous films,
Mhm.
but my god, I sat begrudgingly and admired the fuck out of Wuthering Heights.
Wow. This is not something I expected.
So it's more and it the title is Wuthering Heights in quotes, and some of the problems are still there, right?
Mhm.
She's a provocateur, but her provocations in this one are, I think, to really interesting ends. And she is not really concerned with Bronte's ideas of class or otherness. She is concerned with kind of pathology in sexuality and romance and relationships. And it there are shocking things that happen in this. There are very like hypersexual things. There are things that made me sit on the edge of my seat, but there's also bound with all of that, pun intended, is an emotionality, a kind of pathology, a history of people that I think is really interesting, and especially when it's paired up with her aesthetics. And she's got a big budget here. This is an adaptation of the Bronte novel. She has said it's her kind of idea of an adaptation of the Bronte novel. Um, Wuthering Heights, starring Margot Robbie as Kathy and Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff. And a bully, it's a big movie. It's one that I think is going to have a lot of people talking. It's made a shit ton of money.
Really?
But I would urge people to go see it and go see it on a big screen and with a packed audience and have
With or
what
without a significant other? Is this a movie you need to be sitting next to your partner for, or you shouldn't be sitting next to your partner for?
I saw it I saw it with our beloved Kayla yesterday,
Oh, okay.
our other take upper, because we're both Charlie XCX fans, but we're Emerald Fennel haters. And so
Mhm.
we're like, all right, this is gonna be our little friend time, our little date. And of course, we both also admire Jacob Elordi and Jesus Christ, man. Whew. Anyway. I have been particularly horny on this Valentine's weekend episode, and I am sorry for that. Uh,
Have you ever seen Andrea Arnold's version of it from, like, the early 2000s?
that is
2010s?
my actual endorsement.
Oh, okay.
Is Andrea Arnold's has similar concerns, but also addresses the class and race and the just utter like kind of animalistic sexual ideas
Mhm,
that are kind of present in Bronte, but have been kind of wrung out from Bronte through
mhm,
adaptation. And I think about the scene in Andrea Arnold's where Heathcliff has hurt himself and Kathy licks his wounds. And I think
mhm.
for a lot of people that's probably like pretentious dreck. Like I don't want to see that, but to me it moved me.
No, that's hot that's hot. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, that's
yeah.
hot.
It moved me in a way that one, it's like it's actually really hot, but it was also like so primal and getting to such a like a molecular level that it was so beautiful. That is such a gorgeous film too. It's made in the Academy ratio and it has the kind of claustrophobic nature and expansiveness too of the
Mm.
story. But so I am
The
recommend.
fields of heather have never looked better than I think than an Arnold's version.
I think it's my favorite Andrea Arnold, and I'm a big fan of her.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm a big fan of hers. The 2nd season of Big Little Lies notwithstanding. Um, but, oh, yeah, completely forgot about Bird or whatever that was called. Do you remember that? Last year? Year
Yeah, I
before?
haven't seen it. I've heard a few people raving about it, but it
I
hasn't
fucking
really
hated
been
that movie. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm an occasional fan of Andrea Arnold. I would also recommend William Wyler's, but I'm not
Yeah.
that's one of my least favorite Wylers, and I'm a huge Wyler fan.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're someone who likes to click around on the internet, you can find Jacques Rivette's version, and
So
that
just to bring it full circle, the William Wyler version of Wuthering Heights was an influence on Del Toro for Frankenstein, believe
there
it or
we
not.
go.
Yeah.
And, I bring it up because I think there are a lot of similarities aesthetically and Fennell, for all of her kind of shortcomings and actual immaturity, I I thought was really mounting an expertly, well thought version of Wuthering Heights here, and one that is not without its provocations in really interesting ways. So, I'm recommending Wuthering Heights films. Oh,
Watch
I
them all.
meant the, Jacques Rivette is called Irrelevant. It's like, Strong Winds or something is the name of it, and that's a really interesting adaptation that gets,
Yeah, I haven't heard that
kinda
one, yeah.
far away. It's not been one of the ones that's restored or commonly seen, but it's I love all of Rivette, so I'd be remiss to not point that out. But you can find me at the Take Up STL. That's all of us there. You can find me specifically at OK Josh Ray Reviews K Movie. Oh, just blathering on all over the place. Andrew, what about you? Let's hear one more thing.
Um, I'm gonna go to another film. Again, I kinda spent January playing, exploiting my Criterion Channel subscription a little bit more than I had been, so I'm kind of still going through movies I watched and liked last month. This one was a completely new film that I never even heard of, um, called New Rose Hotel by Abel Ferrara.
Yeah.
Have you seen this film?
I haven't. I'm kind of a Ferrera, like, I only know the basic stuff.
Yeah, I've seen Bad Lieutenant, Addiction, like the big
King
ones.
of New
King of
York.
New York,
Yeah.
yeah, the big ones. I didn't even heard of this film, and I started, like, inspecting the log line and the details on Criterion Channel. I'm like, "What the hell? This is based" so let me back up a little bit. I don't think this is a great movie, but this is an interesting movie and very weird and deserves more attention apparently than it got.
And I
This is,
don't
like, sitting at,
remember.
like, 30% at Metacritic. It's a hated film, but I
Is
thought
it
it was
kinda
fucking cool.
cyberpunky?
Okay, yes. So this is what I would call lo-fi cyberpunk. It's based on a William Gibson novel from the early '80s,
Oh, wow.
or novella. And just let me lay out the cast here, just for starters. Christopher Walken giving maybe one of the most badass Christopher Walken performances I've ever seen, and that's saying something. Um, Willem Dafoe,
Right.
Asia Argento as kind of like the trinity at the heart of the film, but also, like, sprinkled with other actors who pop in for, like, 5 minutes, and you're like, "Wait, what? Gretchen Mall's in this? Wait." Uh, so I won't say it's a great film. The entire 3rd act is basically Willem Dafoe flashing back to things happening early in the film and remembering them, which is,
Okay.
like, a
Fun.
structural problem right there. But it's this fascinating kind of low tech, like high tech but lo-fi cyberpunk corporate espionage noir film where Christopher Walken is playing this like for lack of a better term, a fixer in like the world of corporate espionage. He goes out and executes uh, extractions, robberies, information technology thefts, that kind of things. And Willem Dafoe is like his head guy who like helps him execute these plans. And they have this like wild plan to extract some guy from a Jap. It's William Gibson. It's cyberpunk, so it's like a hypothetical future where kind of Japan is dominating the world economy. Their idea is they're going to extract this guy from his company and set him up with a new life working for some other company. But they're like the middlemen who are pulling off the job. That's about all I want to say about the plot. What makes the movie special, I think, is the mood and the vibes. It's very sort of late 90s. I think this is just after Strange Days, so it's not 1998. So it's not quite as like florid and slick as Catherine Bigelow's version of this kind of cyberpunk future, but it has that same kind of distinctive 90s quality to it, maybe a little bit more indie cinema. Um, and it's a lot of it is improv. Ferreira has always let his actors kind of like go to town. He does multiple reshoots of the same scene and just lets them shoot from the hip and see what happens. And a good portion of what that makes this movie so watchable is watching Christopher Walken just kind of monologue endlessly off the top of his head, and it is spellbinding, I tell you. It's like maybe the favorite thing I've ever seen him in. Just putting Christopher Walken in like a white linen suit with a cane and letting him just like riff is apparently an amazing recipe for great quotable dialogue. So I won't say it's a great movie, but I was highly entertained. It's dark, it's gritty, it's sexy, it's structurally perplexing.
Can I do an addendum to your one more thing?
Yeah.
Everyone should go to YouTube and look up Abel Ferrara's appearance on the Conan O'Brien show.
Wait,
And
what year was this?
shit, like 94 or something.
Okay, so old Conan, yeah.
Well, wait, what was he promoting? I think he would have been promoting Bad Lieutenant at the time.
No, Lieutenant was 92, so maybe? But he also had that Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie around that time
Might have been
too,
around then, yeah, which I think is pretty good.
The Addiction.
And then also you can find a supercut of his King of New York commentary. That's all. Just look him up. He's a real fun guy.
He's a wild one.
Yeah. But that's on your New Rose Hotel is on Criterion right now.
Criterion Channel, yeah.
Very good. And
It was
then
part of their, like, hotel collections in January.
I love their
they
shit.
they
I do love
occasionally
a
have
hotel movie.
very thin premises
I
for their
know.
quote
I
unquote
love a
collection.
hotel movie. You put a
Yeah.
bunch of people and see how they interact.
That's how I ended up watching this along like, right after, like, Palm Beach Story, like, somehow
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. What a
weird
great double
juxtaposition.
feature. They're doing such good work. They should sponsor us. Anyway, yeah, well, where can people find you?
You can find me at thetakeup.com normally. I've been in a bit of a hiatus, but hopefully coming back eventually,
And
with
then
my writing, yeah.
yeah, me too. Me too. I have a big change coming up that's going to force me into writing. More on that
And
later.
and we are continuing with our Best Picture nominees next
We
week, right?
are. Next week, we're going to be talking about Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
Ooh, I can't wait to talk about
Yes, I
this.
can't
Talk
wait.
about a rich text with lots to talk about.
Yes, a lot to talk about. Probably going to be a longer episode. Until then, thank you to Ethan Tarantella. Hi, Ethan. He's always in the background. He's always here, people.
There
For helping to produce and edit the show, and Kayla McCullough for help with social media. Theme music by AMB. And until then, we'll do the mash. We'll do the monster mash, I guess.
Bye.